Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming to our 4th annual CBA Symposium. We're excited about it, and we're glad you're here. We've got a lot to cover today. It's going to be a little bit of a twist. It'll be mostly educational, but it's also going to be quite entertaining tonight. I think it'll be a lot of fun when Mr. Wayne Lucas comes in with his proteges. So should be a pretty fun evening, and we're glad everyone's here. I'd like to first off thank several people who've put this together, most notably Nicole Gibson, our executive director, and all the countless hours she puts into this organization. She does a lot for us, a lot of behind the scenes, and I don't know what we'd do without her. I'd also like to thank the committee, which is Pat Costello, Matt Lyons, Martha Jane Mulholland, Jody Alexander, Kitty Taylor, Jody Huckabee, and Jill Louise Gordon. So thank you all for all your hard work putting this together. Just our mission statement so everybody knows where we come from and what we stand for. The CBA works democratically on behalf of every consignor and commercial breeder, large and small, to provide representation and a constructive, unified voice related to sales issues, policies, and procedures. The association's initiatives are designed to encourage a fair and expanding marketplace for all who breed, buy, and sell thoroughbreds. A couple of things over the past year which the CBA has been doing to try to educate, inform, and just help all of us who are commercial breeders and sellers. And one of them was this booklet you probably saw when you came in. It's on the monitors here as well. Feel free to take one of these when you go. It's a 54-page booklet entitled Successes of Sales, A Guide to Buying Thoroughbreds at Auction, and it covers just about everything you can think of for what we do for a living. Everything from x-rays to how the sales work, to reserves, to the buying public, to dealing with people like the announcers, everything that you can think of to do with the general sales procedures. So I'm grateful for everyone who put all the hard work into that, most notably Dr. Burke and our committee, which was Terry Arnold, Alaire Ryan, Frank Mitchell, Pat Costello, and Matt Lyons. So take some of those if you need them for your organizations. We could probably help you get some of those as well. Also like to give special thanks to our preferred providers, and they're listed in the program. These are the people that help us with special rates and deals and services, so we would encourage you all to take a look at those and use them when you can because they're very helpful and they really want to be a part of our organization as well. Everything from feed and suppliers, transport, all kinds of things to deal with farm and horse selling. Another initiative that we had last year was the U.S. Bred Marketing Program. And we got some of the ads up here on the monitors. Benny Bell of the Bell Group helped the Kentucky Thoroughbred Association and the CBA and Keeneland and Fasig-Tipton and the KBIF with a massive marketing program. It was global. It was intense, and it was digital and print on major race days throughout the world. A lot of EBN and Thoroughbred Daily News bullet ads. You probably saw those hashtag US Breds. And what we're doing is trying to get the word out to help you all sell your horses. We want to take these wonderful Kentucky breds and get the word out so they keep on competing throughout the world and get over to these places because clearly we're very competitive. In 2016, US Breds won 42 group races throughout the world. Most of those were in Europe, some in Japan, some in Maidan. So they were all Type 1 countries, in other words, the elite racing. 8 Grade 1 winners, 9 Grade 2 winners, 25 Grade 3 winners. So that's a total, and 22 listed winners. That's a total of 110 group or listed winners throughout the world. So we should be proud, and we have a lot of reasons to crow about our product, and we just want to get the word out, and that's what we're doing with these marketing programs. To date, in 2017, there's already been 10 US bred group wins in Maidan and Europe. Chauncey, I don't know if that includes Japan. If you're out there somewhere, I don't know if that includes Japan, but it is top flight racing jurisdictions. We've already got 10 US bred group wins and 25 group placings. So we're off to a good start for 2017. So clearly the CBA is working for everyone who breeds and sells thoroughbreds. That's what we're here for. We're here for you all. So we hope you enjoy this day today, and hopefully we'll learn a lot and have some fun. So without further ado, I'd like to recognize Senator Damon Thayer, who was kind enough to join us today. He's a good friend of the industry, legislatively and equine-wise. He's a horseman himself. His history is professional history includes Turfway Park and the Breeders' Cup. So I'd love to introduce Senator Thayer and let him take it from here.
Good afternoon. I feel like I'm in church. Nobody wants to sit in the front row. Don't worry, I won't be taking up a collection. Just got reelected last year, so I'm not going to hit you up for any campaign money. But when I do, Kerry Coughlin has volunteered to be my bag man. Actually, he didn't volunteer for it. I volunteered him for it because he's so good at it. This is a great afternoon for me to be invited back to speak to the CBA, to be able to come up here on this stage where so many great horses have been sold. For a kid like me from northern Michigan, who moved to Kentucky 24 years ago to pursue my dream of working in the horse business, this is pretty cool. So thank you all for the invitation. You know, my story is probably not unlike many of you. There are a group of you who were fortunate enough to be born in Kentucky and able to pursue careers in the horse business. And then there's a huge group of us who were born and raised somewhere else and dreamt since we were kids for the opportunity to move to Kentucky. We probably all have a favorite horse that got us hooked. Mine was Spectacular Bid. I was 12 years old when he won the Kentucky Derby, and I still feel he's the greatest horse to look through a bridle. Although there's another gray horse that carries the Juddmonte Farm colors who's making a claim to that. So we'll see how that works out. I moved here in 1992. I had worked at racetracks in Detroit, Cleveland, and Baltimore, and moved here to work at Turfway Park. I worked there for about 7 years, and then I did an 8-year stint at the Breeders' Cup. And along the way, I got sidetracked into politics. And in 2003, with the help of a lot of people in the horse industry, I was elected to represent the 17th District in the Kentucky State Senate. 14 years later, I'm now the majority floor leader of the largest ever Republican majority in the history of Kentucky Senate. We have 27 Republicans, 11 Democrats. You probably also know, if you follow politics just a little bit, that we have a Republican governor, Matt Bevin, and for the first time in 96 years, Republicans control the House of Representatives. So we have what I like to call a trifecta supermajority. My friends in Frankfurt chuckle when I say that because they know of my horse racing tendencies, and I tend to use horse racing metaphors to explain just about everything that happens over in Frankfurt. So I want to talk a little bit today about some of the successes the horse industry has had in our state capital, but I think it's important first to talk a little bit about government in general, because I want you to know, as citizens of the state, that your state government is working. 2.5 weeks ago, we just finished up our annual 30-day legislative session. We meet for 30 days in odd-numbered years and 60 days in even-numbered years. And it's being called the most successful and productive legislative session in history. We passed a couple dozen of our priority bills that we've been trying to send to the governor for years now for his signature, that we were able to do for the first time because of the new political makeup. Why is this important to you? Because no matter what business you're in, the horse business, the bourbon business, tobacco business, manufacturing, you want a government that works and passes policies that help strengthen families, that strengthens public education in Kentucky. You want a government that is reducing the red tape for businesses, and you want a government that passes policies that create incentives and the environment for job creators to expand and come to Kentucky. It's not the job of your government to create jobs. That's the job of the private sector, but it is our job to pass policies to make Kentucky a more business-friendly state. You may have heard of one of the biggest bills we passed this session. That's a right-to-work law. Kentucky became the 27th right-to-work state, and what that means is union membership is not mandatory as a condition of employment. Since we passed that right-to-work law, we've had 2 separate $1 billion announcements in Kentucky. Amazon is spending $1 billion to build a presence in northern Kentucky and create 1,700 jobs. And in my district, a mile from the front door of my house in Georgetown, Toyota a week ago today announced it's spending $1.33 billion to reinvest and retool the Toyota plant where every Toyota Camry in the world is made for the next generation. Now, are all of these decisions made just because we're a right-to-work state? No, but right-to-work is absolutely a major factor in decisions of major companies to come to Kentucky. If you listen to our governor, and I do, he whispered in my ear at the Toyota plant last week, he said, we've got a few more billion-dollar announcements coming. And that's what we want to hear, no matter the industry we're in. So I wanted to start out today by bragging a little bit on the success of our new Republican trifecta supermajority in Frankfort, because I want you to have confidence in your state government that it's working. Whether you agree or disagree with our policies, and you probably agree with some but not all, you might agree with the majority of them, you might agree with most, you might not. But you know that we are keeping our promises to the electorate to get things done and make state government work. When Joe asked me to return, I spoke a couple of years ago, he asked if I could give an update on the situation in Frankfort for the horse industry. And I thought I would focus on 3 areas where we have been able to claim success over the last 12 years or so. Number 1, I want to start out with an issue where the CBA worked hand in hand with the General Assembly. And it was 11 years ago in 2006, but it's still important today. There was a major effort placed in 2006 on getting the government more involved in your business. There was a major effort to license bloodstock agents. And I serve on the Licensing and Occupations Committee, and that deals with all the licenses. And so we have to arbitrate, mediate fights amongst the barbers and the cosmetologists, between the nurse practitioners and the doctors. It's exactly what I thought I'd be doing when I ran for office. Not. That's sarcasm. But unfortunately, that's a part of it. If you are in a business that is licensed, seems like they always end up fighting against each other, and we have to pick sides between our friends. Working with the CBA, we were able to push back on the effort to get government more involved in your business, but to take a step forward on dual agency, where we transformed the agent business, bringing full disclosure that if someone is serving as a dual agent, it has to be disclosed to both the buyer and the seller. The CBA played a major role in that. I will never forget it, because it was an impressive grassroots effort where we worked to educate the legislature who didn't know much about this side of the business, and we achieved 2 big wins. We stopped the government from getting more involved in your business, but brought more transparency to the sales process. So that was a win-win. The second thing I'd like to talk about is the issue of medication. Here in Kentucky, we have a board appointed by the governor called the Equine Drug Research Council. It is a board made up of veterinarians, horsemen, trainers, industry professionals, and 1 legislator, me. I was appointed back in 2004 by Governor Fletcher, reappointed twice by Governor Steve Beshear, and recently reappointed by Governor Matt Bevin. The Equine Drug Research Council, in addition to funding research studies on medication issues that affect horse racing, makes policy recommendations to the Horse Racing Commission regarding, for example, race day medication. Over the last 13 years, on a bipartisan basis, again under Republican governors and Democrat governors, we have passed policies where Kentucky led the way on eliminating non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs on race day. That would be your bute and your Banamine. There was a time 13, 14 years ago where you could give both in Kentucky, both bute and Banamine on race day. We were known as the Wild Wild West. We have now led the way. Shortly after that, a few years later, we led the effort to eliminate steroids on race day. We moved quickly after the unfortunate demise of 8 Bells when she finished second in the Kentucky Derby. We moved swiftly to lead the way on that initiative and eliminate steroids on race day. And then in the start, stop, start effort to deal with Lasix, Kentucky led the way on that as well. We required that race day Lasix must be administered by a commissioned veterinarian. Now, personally, I'm in the camp of eliminating race day Lasix altogether from racing in this country. I don't have the votes to do that. I don't know if it's going to happen anytime soon. We did pass a regulation that was never implemented to eliminate race day Lasix for stakes races in Kentucky, which I thought was a good first start. It was never implemented, and those of you who follow the medication debate in this country know that that effort has sort of died down. But I do think we took an important step to implement the Racing Commission veterinarian administration of Lasix. I think that lends more confidence to the bettors when it comes to race day Lasix. Other states are now following in our footsteps. So I'm proud that over the last 13 to 14 years, on a bipartisan basis, we have taken Kentucky racing from being known as the Wild Wild West to really a leader when it comes to state-by-state reform of medication regulations. I'm not going to get into the federal debate because I don't have a vote in the United States Congress, but I will say, I just want to say one thing. I am a 10th Amendment guy. 10th Amendment to the Constitution says that which is not specifically prescribed to the federal government in the Constitution should be handled by the states. So you can probably figure out where I am on race day medication. I think it should probably be best handled by the states. It is a hodgepodge. I wish we could get some uniformity with racing commissions working together, and that may be a pie-in-the-sky goal that we can achieve someday. The best news for the breeding side of our business, and make no mistake, the horse industry in Kentucky is two very distinct industries that join as one and are important and necessary for the other to exist. One is the breeding side and one is the racing side. On the breeding side, I think the best thing that we've done is take Kentucky's status as the only state that charges a sales tax to breed a mare to a stallion. We charge a 6% sales tax. And we took that negative, we took that issue that is, frankly, makes us less competitive with other states that are trying to knock us off as the horse capital of the world. We turned it into a positive. And I see my friend David Hager. It was his idea. I'm not going to be one of those politicians who takes credit for everything, just most everything. I'm going to give some of the credit, a big chunk of the credit, to David Hager. Early in my career, I was invited to speak to the Farm Managers Club, and David came to me afterwards, and I had talked about trying to eliminate the tax on breeding a mare. And, you know, trying to get rid of a tax on a singular basis in Kentucky and in any government is difficult to do unless you do it as part of comprehensive tax reform. And David came up with this brilliant idea. He said, why don't you take that money and turn it into a breeder's incentive fund? All these other states have breeder's incentive funds, but Kentucky. Now, we resisted it for a long time because we said, hey, we're Kentucky, we're number one, we're the horse capital of the world, we don't need to have a breeder's incentive. But as other states started creating breeder's incentive funds subsidized by casino profits, Kentucky got into a less competitive situation. We still have the best place in North America to breed and raise racehorses. We have the infrastructure, we have the land, we have the water, we have the veterinarians, we have the blacksmiths, we have the feed companies, et cetera. All of those things go into making us the horse capital of the world. But we were beginning to be at a very distinct disadvantage. So, speaking of tax modernization, in 2005, Governor Ernie Fletcher proposed some reforms to our tax code. I took the concept to him and said, if you want my support for your tax plan, I want you to include this plan to take the money from the sales tax on stud fees and create the Kentucky Breeders' Incentive Fund. And we were successful in doing so. We authorized the money to be put into the overall KBIF. We then divided it up with 81% of it, 83% going to the thoroughbred side, 7% to the non-race breeds and the rest to the standard breds. And then the Racing Commission wrote regulations creating the program. I worked with my friend Kerry Cawthon, who was on the Racing Commission then, as he is again now, and we came up with the regulations governing the breeder's incentive. And so let me just share with you some numbers that I just got from Jamie Eads, who administers the program at the Racing Commission. Since the inception of the Kentucky Breeders Incentive Fund, nearly $130 million in rewards have been paid to successful Kentucky breeders. Now, does that mean they all live in Kentucky? No, they can live in Zimbabwe. But if their mare is in Kentucky, if they own their mare and board her here and breed her to a Kentucky stallion, and she is boarded here year-round, and then that offspring wins one of the eligible races, they get a check every year. $130 million over the last 10 years. This year, $10.8 million has been released since February 15th based on 2016 wins. There's still $1.2 million left to pay out. Breeders have until New Year's Eve to claim your money. So if you're one of those out there, there's still $1.2 million waiting for you to claim. Get your paperwork in. Last year, KBIF horses won 3,913 races across the globe. It included 37 group wins, 267 graded wins in the U.S. Who can forget last year's Royal Ascot meet with wins by Tepin, Caravaggio, Lady Aurelia, who had a brilliant comeback race here on Saturday. Great call, Kurt. Hawkbill, the Kitten's Joy horse owned by Godolphin, and Brave Anna, the Coolmore horse. Also, KBIF horses won all 3 legs of the Triple Crown: Nyquist, Exaggerator, and Creator. And then, of course, back in 2015, who can forget the KBIF eligible horse who swept the first Grand Slam, of course, American Pharoah, winning the Triple Crown and the Breeders' Cup. Here in Kentucky, our stallions cover nearly 1/2 of North American mares, 47%, and we represent 36% of the full crop in North America. Now that is market share, my friends. That is strength. That is why we are the horse capital of the world. And I'm proud of the collaborative effort between the CBA, the KTA, the farm managers, and the effort that we put forward back in 2005 to create the Kentucky Breeders Incentive Fund. As long as I am a member of the Kentucky legislature, I will fight to protect the Kentucky Breeders Incentive Fund to maintain our position as horse capital of the world. On the racing side, if I could digress for just a moment, as most of you know, the United States has experienced 4 years of decline in purses. Here in Kentucky, our year-round circuit, after some contraction and adjustments, now has had 4 straight years of increases in purses. And that is due almost entirely to historical horse racing. And if you go back 10 years or so during the big casino gambling debate, you will find an article in the Blood Horse where a legislator from Georgetown suggested that we take our eye off the casino ball and look at historical horse racing as a way to stabilize and preserve Kentucky's racing circuit. And I asked then Attorney General Jack Conway for an opinion on its legality as a parimutuel device. He said that if the Racing Commission passed rules governing it, that it would, and we've been off to the races ever since. Now, there still is a court case pending that will have the final say. But if you look around Kentucky, Kentucky Downs obviously leading the way with historical horse racing machines. Ellis Park doing very well. Keeneland and the Red Mile have a joint operating agreement at the Red Mile. And if you like those big purses that have gone up substantially at this meet, it's because of HHR over at the Red Mile. Turfway is going to be putting in 500 machines. And even Churchill Downs over at 700 Central Avenue has had a little thaw in their attitude towards HHR and said that they will study it. So I think that HHR has done wonders for the racing circuit here in Kentucky. Like I said, while the country's had 4 straight years of purse declines here in Kentucky, our circuit has been stabilized. It's stronger than ever. We've had 4 straight years of purse increases. We've got good announcements coming from places like Turfway Park, which has already been approved to institute the games. Ellis Park brought back the Ellis Park Juvenile last year. They've announced that this year they're bringing back the Ellis Park Debutante. We see good horses like Looking at Lee and Not This Time coming out of that program, keeping trainers with at least a string here in Kentucky on more of a year-round basis. So I would say to you as participants in the business, these are good times in Kentucky. Yes, we've seen a contraction of our sport at a national level. It was probably long overdue as the equilibrium in the supply-demand on the breeding side and the racing side was way out of whack. For the longest time, we were producing way too many horses for the marketplace, and we had way too many race dates for the marketplace. Then with the decline in the economy in 2008, it really forced an adjustment in both sectors of the business. The breeding side reacted right away. And I think what you see now is a real equilibrium. When you look at the public sales numbers over the last few years, the trend is very good that the supply and demand is just about right. We're back to Secretariat era full crop levels, and that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing as the market finds that equilibrium. On the racetrack side, we're not quite there yet. Racetracks have been slower to make adjustments in the number of race days and races, but it's happening forced by the marketplace. And now as the older crops are no longer racing, the older large foal crops are no longer racing, and the smaller foal crops are now making up the majority of the pool of horses that racing secretaries have to draw from. We have seen a contraction of race dates, which is probably appropriate for the marketplace in terms of the demand from our customers, the race handicappers out there. But we're probably going to see some more contraction. I think here in Kentucky, we were a little ahead of the game. We were forced by the marketplace to cut back on race dates in Kentucky at places like Turfway and Ellis and even Churchill Downs in terms of their fall meet when they took over the Turfway dates. They started out at 20-some, now they're down to about 15. We were forced earlier than other places to make the adjustment. You know, we've got to have full fields of competitive races in order for our product to be accepted in the marketplace. And the marketplace is on-track handle, simulcast handle, advanced deposit wagering. We're probably going to see some more adjustments in that as dictated by the market and the supply of horses. And I think most racetracks are prepared for that. And I hope that continues to mean on the breeding side that it will continue to drive demand for good horses. I give a lot of credit to Keeneland with their recent announcements on what they're going to do on Book One. Very innovative. Keeneland obviously always trying to stay ahead of the curve of the marketplace. So a tip of the hat to the folks here who wear those green jackets every day. So I think things are good in Kentucky. Your government is working. Racing and breeding are doing well. And I know what the big question is. What are you going to do, Thayer, about the sales tax we pay on feed, fencing, and farm equipment? Governor Bevin has indicated his desire to call us into a special session later this year to do tax reform, major tax reform, to update our tax code, to make it more business friendly, to kind of complete the circle that we started with policies this session to make Kentucky a more business friendly state. I am committed, along with a number of other legislators. The good news is you have more friends in the legislature now than you did when I first went in 14 years ago. We have a lot of legislators committed in tax reform to eliminate the sales tax on feed, fencing, and farm equipment that horse farmers pay that no other livestock farmer in Kentucky pays. We even adjusted the statutes with a bill this session that we worked with KEEP and the KTA on to define horses as livestock. It's a fairly benign bill until we get into tax reform and we can say, hey, look, we passed this bill that you signed, Governor, that says horses are livestock. So I'm going to go into that debate armed with a piece of paper that